welcome back to another episode of The Morning Cup. Today I'm joined with Travis Barrett. Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. I meant to ask you before we got started and I totally forgot.
Yep.
So actually Travis and I met at the NSCA Washington State Clinic that we were both presenters at. We were the last two of the day, and I feel like I'm speaking for myself, like we really hit it off. Um, and so we just kind of connected after that. And I'm just so happy that you're here today. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, where you are right now, all the good stuff?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm out in Spokane, Washington at Fairchild Air Force Base. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach for the SERE schoolhouse, and I've been doing that for 4 years. And yeah, life is good.
Life is great. Um, Before we hit record, we were touching on some really good, like, conversations. And so, one of the things I want to get into in just a little bit is like how the clinic went and kind of what you spoke about. But before we get into that, a little icebreaker. So this is like a three-part question. I think it was three parts. Let's see. So what is your favorite lift, your least favorite lift, and what kind of music or like song do you like to lift to?
Man, all right. So favorite lifts would be any kind of Olympic variation. I really enjoy those. They make me feel athletic, even though I'm not athletic. Least favorite lift would be any kind of overhead movement, as far as like a strict press or a push press, because those are the slowest movers and just frustrating. I've never been good at them, so it just takes time. Music wise, would be just any kind of gangster rap, anything like that. So you know, love that stuff.
Do you have like one song that you play on replay? Are you one of like, because that's how I am. Is that like one
Yeah,
of your toxic traits?
yeah. So I've got the same. I don't know. It's about 100 different songs on Spotify in my playlist that I hit, and 90% of it is rap, and then there's some random other stuff in there. It's completely unrelated genre. So, but yeah, Jay-Z, Moment of Clarity, stuff by Tupac, anything like that is good.
Good stuff. You got a healthy mix, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a really cool one by a guy named Tom Jones called Burning Hell that's on there. It's a pure rock, awesome song, but it doesn't belong with anything else. But yeah.
I love that. It's kind of like a little like needle in the haystack, I bet, when you're just like if you
Hmm.
have it on shuffle and you're just
Oh
like,
yeah.
ooh, like it's like all like gangster rap and then it's like this one this one rock song.
Yeah, because
That's
guys in the gym will be like, "Who the fuck is on aux?" I'm like, "Still me, guys. Still me." So
that's so good. Yeah, I guess okay, one more part of the icebreaker. Do the guys like your music?
it depends on who's in there. I mean, some of the guys will listen to like Journey and stuff from like the 70s, and
Mm.
other guys can listen to no shit. They'll listen to orchestra. They'll listen to everything you can think of, and they're still putting out huge, huge numbers. And you're like, how is this not distracting? So they just go to their own world and do their thing.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, I can recall I've had a few lifts where like my earbuds died, and
Hmm.
so I had to work out with no music, but you just keep your earphones in anyways,
Hmm.
because you don't want people to talk to you,
Yeah.
and it's actually kind of therapeutic. So it's only sometimes you got to be like right circumstance all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so I want to touch on the clinic. So we did that about, was that a month ago now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably been close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you work with tactical athletes, and specifically, you presented on working with firefighters. And so one of the things that I thought was super interesting was that throughout, like in your programming, you don't include like pushing, right? Is it horizontal pushing?
Yeah, so they're already doing a tremendous number. Typically, if it's tactical police or fire, especially if they're going through an academy, they'll do their ins and outs anytime they're entering or leaving a building. So um, that starts to add up to quite a bit. And most of them are going to bench on their own anyway. So I just don't want to compound and say, hey, let's do more horizontal pressing because the majority of them have weak posterior chains. They're not doing enough pulling on their own. left to their own devices. So I just leave that one out and kind of double down on the polls.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. Like you said, because I didn't know what that meant until someone asked the question
Mhm.
of like they have to do like bunches of push-ups when they're like coming in and out of
Yeah.
where they're, I don't know, where are they hanging out? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so with like on the tactical side at the SERE schoolhouse, anytime they enter or exit a building, they'll have to do it's right around 25 to 30 push-ups, and then they can at the end of the day when it's all said and done, they're probably going to be doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 push-ups.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and then the fire academy is not nearly that high, but they might be doing 150 to 200 push-ups by the end of the day. So over the course of they've got a 16-week schoolhouse.
That's insane. So, like, just to put that into perspective, at Google, where I work at Google, we
Mhm.
do like a push-up and squat challenge. Like,
Mhm.
it's a 1 week out of the year. And so the limit is 400 reps. And I tried it the first year and I never reached 400 reps a day. But just like the act of doing push-ups every day,
Mhm.
I get it, man. It's just like you never have a chance to recover.
Yeah, that's the big thing is, how's the recovery aspect? Like, I don't want to say everybody trains hard because they don't, but um, everybody has the ability to train hard and can. It's just the willingness to do that, but not everybody is willing to do the recovery aspect.
Mm. Yeah, because that's not cool.
No,
It
it's
doesn't
not
look cool.
exciting.
So, how many days per week do you typically train the guys? And does that kind of change throughout the year? If there's like a busier time in the year for them?
Yeah, so tactical side, they're roughly going to have a 6 month pipeline, and I'll adjust volumes. Intensities will stay relatively high, but the volumes will drop down quite a bit depending on the phases. Uh, with the fire department, especially just being in a 16-week cycle, we don't load heavy enough frequently enough for it to matter too much because I only have them 3 days per week. The tactical, I have them 5 days per week. So that will be adjusted a little bit. And it comes down to time availability and facilities as well.
So 16-week cycles, does that mean like what does that refer to?
Yeah, so with the fire, they'll have it's a 16-week academy, and I'll see them. It'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and what we'll do with them is we'll have moderate stress, low stress, high stress days, respectively, for all of those. And the time we have available is going to be 30, 30, and 1 hour on Saturday. So that is really limiting
Yeah.
based on that time, and then the facility itself is very small. And then you also have different folks who have, their biological age can vary quite a bit, and their training age varies a ton. So
Yeah.
um, that kind of restricts us a little bit in what we can do. But the tactical side, even though what I just said about the biological and training age has the same issues, we have a lot more variability as far as facilities. If I need more time, I can increase the frequency. I can have a lot more ability to adjust things. So the fireside's a lot more just basic linear progression, and the tactical tends to be more of a conjugate approach.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah,
So, like when you have the 30-minute sessions, that's super hard to get like a proper warm up in, like
yeah,
as you would want them to. So,
yeah,
do you kind of just build the warm up into the workout kind of deal, or like what would that kind of look like on a
yeah, yeah.
surface level?
No, you're spot on. That's the number one frustration is you see people walk in and they've got these restrictions or they lack mobility or whatever the case may be. Um, so we'll run through, for example, a 5 point squat. We'll do a 5 point squat, some T spine rotations, and then they're going to jog 400 meters, and then we'll call it good and get right into working out. And then in
Mm,
between each movement, they'll work on mobility one and mobility two, and then we'll rotate what those mobilities are day to day. And then we'll typically stack it where we have, you know, speed power exercise, then strength one, strength two with mobility in between, and then some very high intense um, cardio that we'll do at the end.
ooh, very nice. Yeah, 30 minutes is so hard. So it's like
Yep.
you got to make it count and you got to show up on time.
Yep.
Because even 5 minutes, you're like, well, now I got 25 minutes, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It cuts in really quick. So we have to, if they're late, which, um, if they're late, it's not a good day for them. And that's not coming from me. It's cool to see how the group morphs over time
Mm-hmm.
and the group kind of takes care of it. So,
Yeah. So do you do high and so are you kind of like changing with the stress level days? You have like a high, was it high, low, and moderate? I don't know if I think I messed up the
no,
order.
yeah, I mean it can vary, but typically after one of those days we'll have the moderate or the high day. The next day will be a low because we want to teach them, okay, during this 30-minute dedicated block, we're going to focus on yoga, stretching, mobility, flexibility drills, just teaching them how to take care of themselves. And then on that Wednesday, Friday days, those are going to be very intense. Sometimes they'll be on air. They'll do a lot more carries, sled pushes. There may be external stressors where we'll kind of play the role of, if I'm a scared family member and I have a firefighter coming through my door for my kid or whatever, then I'm going to be screaming and freaking out. So I'm trying to stimulate
Mm,
that external stress. So uh, it's kind of the same thing that other instructors are doing as well. So they're trying to stress these guys out to see how do they respond to it? Do they freak out and shut down, or are they able to learn how to start blocking things off and do what they need to do?
that's super interesting. I can't even imagine. Just like trying to channel, like trying to focus when someone's yelling at me.
Right.
So, yeah, that's interesting. So, when it comes to the conditioning aspect of it, are you matching the intensities with like the theme of that day? So, is like the high
Yes.
intensity day lift also high intensity conditioning and then so on?
Yep, you got it. Because I mean, that's the moderate is we might do a bit more duration. So sometimes the moderate day might be on a Saturday where we have 1 hour. So we'll push things a bit more. The expectations are a little bit higher on a Saturday. But then, you flip that with the high stress day. It's going to be, hey, we're going to go on the bike and we're going to turn the treadmill off, make you run on a turned off treadmill, which is very intense. And then on the low stress day, we're going to learn about yoga, parasympathetic response, box breathing, things just to bring everything down.
I
So,
love that. I don't know if you've ever experienced this with your guys. Like I don't know if they like show emotion,
mhm.
but with breath work I've definitely had some clients like cry
Mhm.
openly. And it's super interesting to see how when you just kind of like clear someone's mind, because it's so hard to do that, especially when you're breathing really fast and you're just thinking about the next thing. If you just take them out of that really like sympathetic tone,
Mhm.
it kind of just hits you like a wall. So have you seen that in any of your sessions or more like a one-on-one?
Yeah, I've had some athletes where stuff just happens, and like they've never had anyone tell them, hey, it's okay. Like
Mm,
clearly you're not in the right headspace today. That's okay. Um,
yeah.
and then just sit with it for a minute. Like shooting the shit, basically just genuinely giving a shit about people goes a long way. And hey, man, like, why would we train hard today when you can't even focus on the task at hand? You just got done telling me a horrific event or something that happened, and a lot of them, unfortunately, men are inherently bad about talking about their issues,
Mm-hmm.
and they think it makes them soft or whatever kind of negative connotation it has. But as I try to teach them about, that's a regular part of life that you need to understand, because how could you train hard if you're distracted?
Right.
And rather they want to, I tell them to journal about their stuff. They can talk to me anytime. They can talk to their peers. They've got a ton of resources. The thing is, utilize those resources. Because there's a ton of underlying issues that can arise from not talking about that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's such an important part of just being a human, but especially
Mhm.
in sports, if like that's a part of your identity, for example, and then your identity is taken away because of an injury or you're not getting the playing time that you want, and it's super easy to just be really hard on yourself and internalize that. And then it turns into like all these negative thoughts about yourself. And it's just
Mhm.
like anyone can experience that. Like I've experienced that and I am not I didn't play a sport in college. I just am like I like to do activities and push myself. So, I think like props to you for especially also being like a male figure for other men to like say, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable. That's super powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to kind of switch gears, I guess, a little bit,
Mhm.
and get into like how did you know that you wanted to be a coach? Like, what was the moment that you're like, Travis, this is what we're gonna do?
Yeah, so initially, I was like, well, I'll just go to school for computer programming because I know those guys get paid a ton of money, whatever, I'll just tolerate that. Then got in my first class and I was like, oh shit, this is absolutely the wrong, no, definitely not doing it. Then I switched to dietetics, did that for 2 years, undergrad, and I thought, the only thing that I could do with a dietetics degree was just work in a clinical setting in a hospital. And you can only go so far with that being the theme of what your expectations are. So when I got to that end point, I was like, you know what, this is pretty boring. If that's the only thing that I can do with it, which I didn't realize it can be so much more than that. Um,
Right.
so at that point, I transferred to Ball State and switched to exercise science because kind of the big rewinding a little bit, the big turning point was I was always kind of a short, fat kid. And then once I got my license, um, I started going to the YMCA every day after school. And I went from about 200 pounds down to about 150 pounds. And I did that over the course of 6 months. So there was nothing that changed from a nutritional standpoint. I was still eating like a high school kid, where I was just tons of, shit food of
Oh my
sandwiches, chocolate
God.
milk, just chips. But I dropped 50 pounds. So what was the big change? And the big change was the activity level.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the light bulb moment. And when I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, if I did that with not knowing anything, I wonder what I could do if I knew some things. And then I started seeing some changes. And I've never been blessed, as far as athletically, uh, from the genetics standpoint. So my thought was like, all right, well, if I can maximize what I do have with what I can control, then let's see what happens. And, you know, I made some improvements, and then it was like, all right, well, cool. Let me see if I can help some other people do this. And that's when I started bugging Coach Roberson at Ball State. He came in, gave a speech, and I just wanted to hang out with athletes and see if I could help them get better. And yeah, it just kind of stacked and took off from there.
That's awesome. And you just mentioned to me, by the way, I just like I have to hype you up on this that you've done all this school, like talking to you, not like I didn't even know any of this about you, but like you have your own business. You're also working with these firefighters. You have your master's degree. You're also like a PhD student right now, or you're going to be a PhD student.
Yeah,
So that's just so awesome. And like being a full-time like parent and full-time like job person, adding on a PhD is I feel like a whole separate job.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's that's one of the benefits of the Air Force is I found out that they do tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance for up to 75%.
That's
And
awesome.
so I started checking around, and Dr. Josh Bailey at University of Idaho, him and I hit it off, and he's like, "Well, what do you want to study?" And it's like, "Well, I've always been kind of interested in testosterone cortisol ratios with respect to injury, and in addition to those two metrics, I want to see if jump height has any bearing on predicting injury rate, because right now we have no way
Ooh,
of knowing injury rate other than past injury. So my thought would be, all right, if we can measure TC ratios, measure jump height, and then track these people over time, what information can we find out about likelihood of injury? So not that we can completely predict it, but we could at least say, all right, with a lot of confidence, this person should take the next day, 2, 3, maybe 4 days off and do something else because based on our data, they're you know have a higher incidence of injury rate.
that's
So,
amazing. I'm
but
super excited to see what you do, like what you find out there. That's awesome. We'll have you back on again.
all right, all right.
That is so awesome. So, not to kind of sidebar again, but like, are you using jump plates now with your guys, or do you guys have access to those?
Yeah, so right now we're just using a just jump mat. It's just
Okay.
a quick, dirty version. We do have a set of vault plates. Dr. Bailey, I think, is going to get some Hawkins Dynamics plates, have those sent up. And then the question becomes like, how frequently do we measure the jumps? How frequently do we measure the TC ratios? And then I'm going to reach out to other people and see like, all right, you're in charge of X number of athletes. Can you monitor this as well? Because it's not going to be tremendously hard. It's just going to take a ton of time and accurate, reliable, valid ways of doing things that are just going to take time. Because who
Mm-hmm.
knows? I could end up back here 3, 4 years from now and be like, all right, well, I got my PhD and there's no information. It's like,
At least that's the whole point. It's like you never know until you try. And then also props to you for coming up with something to study because I was just thinking about I dabbled. I'm like, what if I want to get my PhD one day? But there's so many studies already done.
mm-hmm.
It's like how you got to be really creative at this point of like, or just be super curious about a specific thing. Um, and so I think that's awesome. So at least if you find nothing, at least you found that like maybe there is no relation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I think it'll be good because if there's something there, then police, fire, tactical, especially tactical, they're in the population I work with, left to their own devices, they will push maximally all the time. And I talked to him about this concept of dread, which is don't redline every day. So, hey, here's some data saying this is going to happen if you do this. And then we can potentially send it out to different units and they can take that information and do what they want with it. But at least it's a good, reliable piece of information potentially.
Yeah, that's the acronym I really liked from your talk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of stuck.
Yeah. Don't redline every day. That's good for like the people who, because we all have them. We all have those people who want to go hard every single time, every single day. I've had people come to like multiple classes in a row, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, at some point, something's going to give.
Yep. Yep. I was watching a video last night of an Achilles. Like, I didn't know I was going to watch this, but it just came across my feed and it was an Achilles rupture. And I was like, man, that's an example right there of somebody just not doing the proper preparation because they hurt themselves in training. And it's like they clearly just jumped into this thing, literally jumped into this thing, and
Oh,
just you saw a give. It's like, man, if you just would pay attention and monitor your stuff and, you know, strategically go about this, we can, it's one of the safer things that we can do.
oh my God, I can't imagine. I hate when I'm scrolling and my algorithm like has to pull up something. I just feel like I just want to throw up a little bit. If I'm not prepared for it. If I'm prepared for it, I'm like, okay, this is fascinating. And I also am like super interested. I don't know if you've ever been like interested in the side of stuff. If you've ever like dabbled in like any education in that
Yeah,
avenue.
yeah. I mean, that was never one that I was super interested in as far as a profession goes, like for me personally. But watching people go through the rehabilitation process and come out the other side and they're good to go, like I get to watch that every day in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. It's really interesting to watch, but for me, that's not something that I could see myself doing. I'm really happy there's other people who do it.
Yeah. Do you get to work like so do you guys have a PT that you get to work alongside?
Yeah, so that's what makes it very, very nice is uh the first guy who hired me was Major Matt Jimenez, and now he's down at a rescue squadron down in Georgia. But he's a physical therapist, and then there's another the guy who replaced him is a physical therapist, Major Diorio, and he came out of the fellowship program from USAFA, which is United States Air Force Academy, and their offices are right next to mine. So anytime there's an issue, I can just take an athlete up there and say, "Hey, this guy's reporting X, Y, and Z. I'll just drop him off in your office and let me know what I can and can't do. I'm gonna go down and work with the healthy people, and we'll get going." But yeah, it's
That's
really
awesome.
really nice to have that resource available.
That's so nice. And so that's for the Air Force guys, you said?
Yep.
Or okay.
And
That's the dream.
man, to have an entire team around and everybody just within their respective area of expertise, like, hey, this is what I'm going to work on, and we're going to help each other, would be tremendous. Like that's what we're after. We're trying to get a nutritionist. We're trying to get an athletic trainer, a physical therapist, all of these things that people just need to go to one area.
And that way you have like that communication, which is so important when it, especially working with like a team or a group of people who work closely together is you need to have that reliable like communication and trust and like build relationships with not only like your like, mates but like the people who are providing care. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can both be on the same level of understanding, that's just such an awesome like such an awesome team like as professionals
Oh
in
yeah,
the field.
yeah. It makes things so much easier because it's just I don't have to call and call and call. I can just walk right in and be like, hey, what's up with this dude's knee? Oh, he's
Mhm.
got this going on. Cool, and good to go. I was talking to a lady yesterday about optimization, and her question was like, how do you optimize performance? And the first thing I started with was, well, we have to get clear on terms and make sure that clients know what optimization means and what they're going to have to give up and what they're going to have to sacrifice in order to optimize things.
Mm.
Because in order to optimize things, it's going to take a ton of time, ton of effort, can't waver. I mean, there's once you're deciding on this thing, it's all in. But
Yeah.
that is what's fun is you take an athlete who thinks that they've done everything they can do, you introduce, a new concept or a new idea or a new way of going about things, and the results improve 2 to 5%, which is massive.
Mhm.
That is so much fun to do because you get a chance to do advanced tactics and strategies and things like that.
Yeah, especially like once you've had that relationship built up with them
Mm-hmm.
too. Because I'm sure there's some resistance, and I'm not. I'm wondering like how long do you think it took your guys to trust you?
Oh shit. Yeah, that's a good one. So it was I got there in July of 2020 to Fairchild, and I didn't say anything for. I mean, I was friendly. I introduced myself and stuff, but I just observed for 1 to 2 months, and I just had a little black notepad where I just write stuff down. And one day one of the cadre was like, "Hey, do you have any feedback or things we could improve upon?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I got this notebook that's pretty full right now of things that I think we could work with." So it started with, all right, well, here's the most pressing issue that I saw. Can we adjust this? And how you go about building relationships is absolutely key because ultimately it comes back to know, like, and trust. So KLT is what you're after. So you're just meeting people where they're at. Expect there's going to be some resistance because you're an outsider. Like, who the hell are you? What are you trying to tell us what to do and all this stuff. And it may not be that apparent, but hey, well, you guys are doing 5 sets of this. Could we try 3 sets and see if we get a better result? And they may give me that one. Okay, cool. And then they do get a better result and they're more open to, all right, well, what else do you got? All right, what else do you got? And then guys start paying attention and they see other people working with me. And then it ends up somebody else comes over. And then before you know it, it's what it is today, where most people on that side are paying attention and listening and you know asking my opinion on things, and it's very very good. So I don't know the exact time frame, but it took a while.
That's really cool. Because thinking about just being a new person in a group setting with its already established, group, and there's probably someone before you. Was there
Mm-hmm.
someone before you?
Yeah, there were two different guys before me, and all three of us have been completely different personalities, different in almost every way. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it has a different feel.
Yeah. So I like your approach though of like not coming off as telling them all these things to do all
Mm-hmm.
at once, more as like they're seeking they're seeking your guidance because you didn't throw anything on them and force them to like convert to your ways, more of like they asked your opinion on something and like you gave them a simple solution and it worked. And it's like
Hmm.
little like breadcrumbs like that,
Yep.
which is super cool over time that just like got the whole team,
Yeah,
got the whole squad.
it's just like taking care of a gigantic garden.
Mm,
So like some seeds are going to sprout real quick. Those are the people who are all in. They know your background. They know they like you. It's easy. And then you've got other ones where it's like, hey, that seed, just keep watering it, just keep giving it sunlight. It may sprout tomorrow. It may sprout next week. We don't know, but just keep taking care of it. And I think that's the big thing is a lot of people are just impatient. They take it personal or whatever. It's just it's not about that. It's about just keep working. Eventually, one day people will come around.
yeah, I think it can be disheartening. And that's why I really like your way of looking at this of like just keep watering the seed
Hmm.
because it can be kind of disheartening when you don't click with someone
Yeah.
immediately. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I feel like I really connect to people's energies. And like, when I don't, I'm like, do they not like me or is it a me problem? But it's really not about you. It's usually about them and then them just kind of like taking a while to open up or, figuring out their shit.
Yeah.
And again, just like taking time to sprout. So I love the analogies. These are
Oh,
great.
thanks. Yeah, you never know. You never know what somebody's background is. Like, or what trauma they may or may not have, or what happened in the past. And I just try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and then, and on the complete opposite end of that, there are some people who are just assholes and just go through life just being
Yeah.
a prick.
I mean, you want
You
to
know?
talk about assholes.
Yeah,
That
exactly, exactly.
that one guy or
Yeah, one dude.
girl.
Yeah, you know.
the I think this is a good segue into like feedback maybe because
Hmm.
I really wanted to talk about this and we hit this before we press record. But like receiving feedback
Hmm.
after that clinic that we both spoke at.
Hmm.
And the feedback was not private, so it went to like all the speakers, I believe,
Hmm.
which I thought was kind of rough, but for some people. But I had mentioned to you that I got one really negative piece of feedback, and it was just angry with no actionable
Hmm.
items. It's just like a blanket statement, and that was it. And so, my question to you is have you received like a negative piece of feedback before? And if so, how did you respond to that? Slash, how did you use that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's been, um, the first thing I do is like, okay, take in this information. All right, this hurts. This hurts to hear right now. But then I'm one of those people where I'll think about things quite a bit. I'm not just gonna like. I'm blessed to have a very good memory, but at the same time, it's kind of a curse because I don't forget things. So everything good and bad, I could tell you, I could list out right now every person, when, what they said, as far as like a ding at me professionally, or they said this, they made me, whatever, which is good because, like, in a good way, it makes me work a lot harder, and in a bad way, I remember all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I take that information in, I think about it while I'm working out or whatever. Shit, there's probably a grain of truth in there somewhere. So now I have to do the painful part, which is self-reflect and think, shit, maybe they have a point, and then start looking at stuff and seeing like, all right, I could probably be better about XYZ. And then the preparation for the clinic itself for me started probably around February. And the prep work I ran through, the presentation you saw was probably the seventh version of that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that first version I sat down, showed some people, and they're like, yeah, here's the stuff that's wrong with it. Boom, 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 boom. All right, that sucked. And you know, anyway, I mean, it's just all how you choose to interpret it, how you choose to, what are you going to take with it. So,
Yeah, and let's keep in mind like the presentation was in May. So you were super prepared, which I think is so important because when you presented it just seemed so natural like and it's what you do on a day-to-day basis, but to kind of have your thoughts and then put them onto slides and in a meaningful, organized way that makes sense to everyone else who doesn't know anything about what you do is
mm,
so hard.
Yeah.
Because you're just talking about this stuff. You're like, yeah, but they know what I mean, and like maybe they don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it turned out great, but it's cool to hear that it was like the seventh iteration. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't just happen.
No, yeah. I mean, you can tell. I mean, you can tell who's putting in work and all that stuff. I mean, yours was very well done, and the people who miss the point are not interested in growth. You know, they're just, well, we've always done it this way. Okay, how's that working out for you? How's that working out for your clients? Are you serving your clients the best way you can if you're not being willing to grow? Um,
Right.
you know, so same thing. Like yours was well thought out and well prepared, and you know, for the folks who are listening to this, it's like we had everybody there who is there was one girl who was like 16 years old that attended the conference. She actually went to that high school.
Oh,
She just
wow.
yeah, she was just some kid who's like, hey, this stuff sounds kind of interesting. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you had a couple guys there who were like in their 70s. And I talked,
Mm-hmm.
one guy was a pharmacist. He had no idea about strength training, but he's interested in it. So it's a really challenging to not know 100% who your audience is going to be and then keep people engaged uh, throughout your presentation. So, um, you know, I think
Yeah,
that's
dude.
part of the challenge too.
Yeah. And when you're on a time crunch,
Yeah.
like we were at the end of the day, so it was like get through your stuff and make sure like I think I had a little technical difficulty in the beginning
Hmm.
there. So I
Yeah.
had like 30 minutes ish, but you're very kind and we're like, keep going if you need. So I appreciate that.
No.
But it definitely is interesting, especially when it's a large group of people
Hmm.
of varying ages and job descriptions. And you're just not going to be everyone's favorite all the time. That's just impossible. So it's important to understand that and take everything with a grain of salt, is what I've learned. And some people are just angry.
They are. I mean,
Yeah.
hurt people, you know, is like you've got like there's some feedback. We do surveys, which I'm not a big fan of, and I'll explain why, but we do some surveys with our students at the schoolhouse, and some of them are like I read through all of them. Some of them are very good and they're fair, and it's like, okay, cool, great. Some of them are just very harsh. They're, you know, they have very poor examples of what they're saying. The reason they're saying them is because they got their ass chewed out one or two times and they're holding on to that and they're staying bitter. They're
Hmm.
not moving on. They're not critically thinking about what was said to them. Um, and for some of these, especially when it's a niche like what we have, is in my opinion, if you want to be giving feedback, you have to at least be on my level. Like
Mm.
you can't to give fair and equal feedback as
Yep.
far as you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I've just it's getting easier as I go because I'm like if any of these if any of these guys had something to say and they want to come say it to me personally, I've probably forgot more about training than they'll ever learn because they don't have a passion and don't care about it the way I do.
Hmm.
So,
I agree. I kind of wish it wasn't anonymous. Like, I just want to know that
well, I
one
mean,
person.
everybody's a tough guy behind the keyboard, you know, is like it's I think Mike Tyson was talking about this recently where he's like, yeah, everybody's real tough behind a computer screen, but are you going to say what you're going to say to somebody up close and in person? Not saying
Yeah,
you're going to be violent, but I mean like at least you know there's a person you're talking to.
right.
And you know, again, some people are just assholes and there's just straight up just always going to be critical, never going to be happy. And those are just the energy vampires that John Gordon talks about that you just don't want to be around. And that's fine. Get them out of your life as fast as you can.
It's like Mean Girls behind the computer. It's
Yep.
high school all over again.
I was thinking you know, on Fridays we wear pink or whatever it is.
It's Wednesdays,
All right, sorry,
Travis.
Wednesdays. I was going to get it wrong.
You were so close. You're so close.
I love
I'll
that
give it
movie.
to you. Oh my God, it's so good. They're like redoing it actually. Tina Fey is
Oh,
like
really?
redoing it. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I think it's more of a musical, which I'm not crazy about, but I will
Hmm.
give it a chance. So,
Best line in that movie is the kid who shouts out, he's like, "You don't even go here."
yes. Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite ones. that's just a classic. It'll like never not be true to
Mhm.
life too. There's always going to be those mean girls, even, whatever in your life. And I think like to summarize this whole thing up is like we kind of just hit the nail on the head of just, take the feedback, do what you want with it, but don't marinate in it
Mhm.
at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So yeah, I appreciate this little we had to talk about this. I had to
Yeah.
talk about this with you. Okay, moving along in our conversation. So this is something that I like to ask everyone. So what are you currently nerding out on? I know you have a lot going on in your life, but like what are maybe two things right now, one or two things that you're kind of focusing on educationally?
Yeah, I'm always rotating. So, excuse me. Like we were talking about, as far as like halfway read books and stuff, I've got, I don't know, like 12 on my shelf that are just like halfway read. I get interested in something else, and I'll finish them all at some point. But anyway, I always
Yeah.
try to work on one that's personal development, and then I work on another one that's professional development. So, let's see. I just finished. I just finished Outlive by Peter Attia. I just listened to that stuff on my way to work. Then the other one is what's the one by Robert Greene? Oh my gosh,
Did you write it?
The Laws of
Oh,
Human
yeah.
Nature by Robert Greene. Love all Robert Greene stuff. Anything by Malcolm Gladwell is awesome. Um, and then like I have some really odd specific stuff that I'm reading, like the German Principles of Sport Training by Frederick Hare, I believe. Dietrich Hare. So anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. So how
It's a
about you?
healthy mix. It's a
What are you
healthy
reading?
mix. Ooh, so just like we talked about, like yeah, there's a bunch that are half read. I just started reading the conditioning book by Joel Jameson, the
Oh,
Ultimate MMA Conditioning.
it's a great one.
It's so good because one of my biggest gaps is conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
actually. So I'm on chapter 4, and I'm already just like, wow, I feel like I know so much more already. Like I love how he just explains stuff so well and simple that it's easy for me to like retain. Because like for
Yeah.
me, it's like if I read some book that's like way over my head, I'm stuck on the same page for a few times. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time for this. Um, so I'm reading that, and I was reading Triphasic. I've kind of fallen off, but that's also how I'm training right now.
Yeah, I love triphasic. I think it's a great way to go about it. And Joel Jameson, by the way, is in Seattle, I believe. Like
I just
he's
learned that.
yeah, you should look him up. And I've never met the guy in person, but he's supposed to be great. I've never heard anything bad about him. So.
I actually signed up for a clinic at Vigor Performance in Luka
I
Hokovar.
don't. I'll have to look
It's
him up.
called Vigor Performance, and it's in Renton.
Okay.
But Luca's really big on Instagram and YouTube. But I followed him for a long like when I was back in college, and then I never knew where he was located until I moved out here to Seattle, and then I went to Mike Robertson's thing last year, and it was there at Luca's gym.
Yeah, he's a ball
Um,
state.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So many of you. And so Joel's going to be one of the guest speakers there. So I got to finish this book before October so I
Oh, okay.
can.
I saw the ad for this. I know which one you're talking about. That's October 10th through the 12th or something, right? And there's going to
I
be
didn't
a huge list of people.
I didn't know it was starting on a Thursday. I just signed up. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got to be there." So it's like a Thursday through Saturday event. Lots of
Okay.
speakers. There's like it looked like 10 or 11. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that one, see if I can get a TDY out for that one.
Yeah, you should come hang out. That'd be so
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think for education, that's oh, I'm taking a biomechanics course right now.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Connor Harris, he's awesome. He's super
Hmm.
smart.
He's
He
out in
helps
Oregon,
like,
right?
yeah, I would love to meet him in real life.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's all I can handle. I've been on week 4 for like 2 months, so
Okay.
yeah, we're slowly making it through.
See, I don't know
Uh,
what you're talking about where you're saying like you're impressed with what I'm doing. I look busy, but I'm not that busy. You're actually busy. So,
I don't know. I think we're all really busy. We just like are not giving ourselves enough credit for what,
hang on
because like
just
you have a business and like an email list and all this stuff. And so I'm just very impressed with people who can do that. So,
Oh, thank you.
yes. Um, all right, next thing I wanted to touch on, because this is a big part of why my podcast started.
Hmm.
Um, what was like a moment of adversity that kind of stuck out to you in your life? Um, how did you overcome that? Or kind of like what does that mean to you?
Yeah. This is a very hard question for me to answer because I have been very blessed my entire life. I don't, and especially as you meet more people and some of the athletes that you meet over time, I don't have adverse. I come from a lower middle class white family in the Midwest. Um, there was never anything super serious. There were some times in college where, you know, I had my brother pass away when I was in college, and then I think it was a couple weeks later, my dad went into cardiac arrest and survived cardiac arrest. Um, and that period of time really sucked because it was just one thing after another.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then I had, there's a couple years ago, another brother passed away from heart attack, and there's just like times like that I think of as far as just it just comes with the ups and downs of life. But there's nothing severe that I've seen from comparatively, you know, what some other people went through. So, um, I just I don't know how to explain it or how to talk about it, but I mean, it's just one of
Yeah.
those things of there's I don't know why I got the genetic lottery as far as being blessed in a great family, going to being able to go to school, life is good. Like, it's just one of those things. So I wish I had
I
something better for you.
I think I'm so sorry. I don't it's always hard when, someone loses someone, especially at like not one but two family members. I I'm just so sorry you had to go through that, not once but twice. And I feel like you have such a good outlook on life, like to have gone through all that and to still feel like you're super blessed and, that's not as bad as the next guy. Like I know it wasn't easy in that time, but I just admire your perspective.
No,
And I would say that's an adversity that you had to face because dealing with that is so unpredictable and you don't really know how to process it and there's no right or wrong way to handle it. And so, to have gone through all that and do what you do now and to have the outlook you have is just like hats off to you, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Thanks. I mean, a large portion of it is because of my mom. I mean, she's incredibly tough, incredibly resilient, just relentlessly optimistic, and hey, all right, that sucked. That's okay. We're gonna keep moving, and that doesn't mean you don't mourn. It doesn't mean you don't have your periods of time, but you're not going to live there, you know.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people, um, something will happen for sure, and that's a lot of people like live in that, and that becomes their identity is, well, I'm depressed because of XYZ, whatever the circumstance. Therefore, I'm going to wrap my identity up in that depression or sadness or whatever other thing. And, you know, my mom and I would talk about that of like, you can have your period of time, but after, this time frame hits, it's time to move on. And,
Mhm.
you know, credit goes to her.
Yeah. I mean, it's important that you have that support too. Like it sounds like your mom is just like a superhero and it sounds like your dad is too for living through cardiac arrest.
It was, it was wild, like, um, with as rare as cardiac arrest is, and then I think the kill rate's like 97% or 96%. And he was driving, when it happened. And
Oh my gosh.
so I'm from a really small town. So he was driving when it happened. And my stepmom reached over and grabbed the wheel. And the college girl who was in the car behind him recognized something was wrong, called 911. And they were able to get there within, I don't know, 3 minutes and, start CPR.
Wow.
And, he had a shoot, pacemaker, defibrillator, valve replacement, all of that done, and that was 12 years ago, and he's still here, still kicking. So,
Wow.
but yeah,
Wow, that is just that's how humanity is good, you know? It's just
yeah,
strangers that you don't know, like you don't know the next person, but they save your life. That's so incredible.
yeah. It's one of those things of life. I think it's Tony Robbins talks about like life is not what what happens to you. It's how you choose to respond to it. Like you're either
Yeah.
making things happen or you're just choosing to let life happen to you, which is not how you want to go about things.
Ooh, that's that's like the like icing on top. Like I think that's like the take home message of kind of all that. And it's hard not to marinate and like to
Yeah.
ruminate's probably the better word.
Hmm.
To just ruminate on those things that really suck and like fixate on the negative things instead of like spending your energy focusing on the good things that you do have. And so I appreciate you sharing all that with me because and like with everyone else because it really does make you put things into perspective of like, hey, you could have this really bad thing happen to you and yes, you can feel bad and sorry for yourself, but life would not be as good if you spent all your time doing that, you know? So, yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I guess to kind of bring us on home here, um, this one always gets people, but what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Buy Bitcoin. No. Uh, I don't know. I would say be more patient, um, because and I realize the irony with what I just said a moment ago, but with the be patience, but um, it's I want things to happen quickly, even though I'm in an industry and a field that is nothing but delayed gratification. Um, I think if I would just put more pause in my life, take a step back, don't be in such a rush. I mean, something along those lines is what I would have said.
That's beautiful. I think that could go for everyone too. Like I definitely feel that same way of I'm not where I should be, but who's to know what you're supposed to be doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend tell me too, like every like thing that happens, like, where you are in life, maybe you're there for a certain reason, like a little longer than other parts of your life. So I thought that was interesting to think about of like maybe this part of your life is serving a purpose.
Yeah, that is. I've wondered about that same thing, and especially after I don't know if you remember the movie The Butterfly Effect. How
Mm,
one small thing can affect everything else. But um, there was a period of my life where I was not living in Washington, and I was just going to work every day, wondering like, why the fuck am I here, doing what I'm doing here, and ended up, an acquaintance. He was having some serious struggles, and we ended up getting him to a facility that he needed to go to fix everything and get him back on the straight and narrow. And uh, he got straightened out, and now he's living a good life. Things are great. And I think about that and wonder about that. Like, what if what if everything is, you know, this is super philosophical, has some crazy philosophy here, but like, what if it's not about me? And what if the whole reason for that period of time was just to be a voice to this guy to say like, hey man, you're fucking up right now. Here's what you need to
hmm
do. And who knows? Maybe he would have found somebody else that would have pushed him along, maybe not, but and maybe it's just my own brain just trying to justify the reason why I was there. But
I
we
think
never.
that's I think that makes a lot of sense and it's not like you accomplished nothing. Like you helped someone turn their whole life around. Like you were a part of that movement. So I think that's a great way to look at that. Cool. Well, I just want to say, Travis, I really appreciate you being here. This has been so great, and I feel like the conversations are never long enough. I feel like we just like scratched the surface, so I might have to have you back on again.
Anytime.
Uh, and we'll talk about your PhD when you finish that, and you can tell us what you find.
Okay.
If that sounds good with
Thanks.
you.
Sounds great.
Cool. So, where can the people find you?
So website for my side business is my business is called Dynamic Human Performance. website is dynamichp.net. On Instagram, it's I should know it right offhand, but it's dynamichpt, I believe. And yeah, I'm just trying to get that ball rolling and put out more content and things like that. There's also a link or a button on my website about my YouTube channel and stuff where I have my rants and tirades about frustrating stuff I see in the industry that I'm trying to call out people for bullshit that is just not true, so they don't waste their time.
Yeah, so you hear that? Everyone follow Travis. He's such a gem. And I just love promoting people that are super knowledgeable and are like spreading the good word and just educating the people. So keep doing what you're doing, even if it feels like you're talking to a brick wall, because sometimes it really does
Yep.
feel like that. But
Yep.
you're helping someone, and hopefully you get a few new followers for my podcast too.
Hey, this will, probably blow up to be like 20,000 new followers.
We're here. We're calling it here, folks. He's going viral.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, I appreciate you being here, and we'll have you back on another time.
All right. Sounds good.
As always, thank you for listening to The Morning Cup. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to find more, you can find them on Spotify and Apple Podcast at The Morning Cup. You can watch the video version of all episodes on YouTube at Fitty with Schmitty. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss more episodes, share with a friend, and smash that 5-star review if you're feeling generous. See you next time, friends.